next thing you'll want to do is just to check your understanding of some of the basic controls in the car.
Right.
So for example, starting with the pedals down there, tell me what you know about the pedals at the moment, because you say you know a bit about them. Tell me what you know about the pedals.
So I know we've got the clutch on the left,
good,
brake in the middle, accelerator or gas on the right.
That's it. Yeah, so some people like say CBA or ABC, but let's remember that. Yeah, cool. And then do you know what foot you would use for what pedal?
I would use my left foot for the clutch.
Good.
And my right foot for the brake and accelerator.
Yeah, that's it. Cool. And then with your, when you're doing your feet, is it possible to have your heel below the brake pedal and then sort of pivot to the gas? It depends how, because your feet are fairly big, I don't know how that feels.
It feels completely fine to me.
Yeah.
It's not getting stuck anywhere.
Because the reason why that's quite a nice thing to do, particularly at the early stages, if you have your heel below the brake, you know if you're pressing your foot like that, you're on the brake.
Yeah.
If you're angling your foot, it's the gas.
Okay.
That's also why you might notice the gas pedal slightly lower down, so you can do that pivot.
Okay, yeah.
So it basically can help you more easily identify which pedal you're pressing by the angle of your foot.
Right, okay.
Also having it on the hill on the ground and then pivoting it, it will also make you press the pedal smoother. So you're just sort of pivoting, you're not
pushing down,
you're not
like
stamping between them. So yeah, but it depends on the person. Some people have quite small feet or very big feet, and then it's not really possible to always do that, but it seems like itself that feels quite comfortable doing that, does it?
Yeah.
And then in terms of those pedals, a few phrases I'm going to use, just so you're used to the terminology I might use. Kind of like you've already said, in terms of the accelerator, I'll probably call that gas, just because it's a bit quicker and easier to say when driving along.
Okay.
And if I said to press the gas, I'd basically mean pressing the pedal about maybe that much, about sort of roughly the width for a pound coin.
Okay.
And have a go at doing that. See how, if you just sort of, is it possible to pivot your foot on that hill from the brake? I don't know how that, because you might find that make you press it more sensitively. Yeah, that looks like you've got fairly sensitive feet, which is nice. So pressing at small amounts. And in terms of the brake, similar thing. If I say to you to brake, again, I'd initially mean just pressing it about the width of a pound coin. Have a go at that. And if I said brake harder, you'd press it a bit more. You probably won't press it down much at the moment because it's because the engine's off. Right. The brakes won't work fully with the engine off.
Yeah. It does feel a bit stiff.
So you'll notice when the engine turns on, that will sort of loosen up a bit.
Okay.
It won't go as loose as the gas feels at the moment, but it will loosen up a bit.
Okay.
Probably one of the most important phrases I use, particularly the early stages, is cover brake. Any guesses what I might mean by cover brake?
I have no idea.
So it's kind of like whatever it is with Ron seals, whatever they say, what it does, what it says in the tin. Okay. Having your foot hovering over the brake pedal, but not pressing it. Okay. So you're just covering your foot over the pedal. Essentially, some people would say, so you're ready to brake. Okay. Reason why that's quite important is maybe we're coming up to something like a junction, and at the early stages you want to get your feet in the correct position, so you're going to be pressing the correct pedal. I might say to you cover brake, so your foot's in the correct place, ready to go, so it's not like a last minute sort of panic of trying to find where the pedal is. But again, as you get more and more experience, you might need to do that less because you'll get more confident with where the pedals are and that sort of thing. Okay. Similar sort of thing with clutch. I might say to you cover clutch, so it'd be a similar thing of just having your left foot hovering over it but not pressing it. Okay. Again, so you're ready to press it. So again, maybe if we're looking to stop soon, you'd need to use the clutch, so I might say cover clutch there. If we're looking to do a gear change, I might say cover clutch, so your feet are ready, basically in the correct position, ready to go. Okay. If I said to you clutch down, that would mean fully down. Do you want to have a go at doing that? Just because you'll notice it goes down quite a lot further than the other pedals. One thing to sort of, so we're going to again try with that clutch pedal, see if you can, if you go clutch fully down again for me, is it possible to just bring the clutch up a little bit and then stop there and then have your heel on the ground, and is it possible to pivot that foot? It depends how big your feet are.
It gets stuck about halfway, so I would have to use the tip of my foot, I reckon.
See how that sort of, just have a little play with it. Because the idea being, if you can have your heel on the ground you'll have more control because your foot will be kind of anchored.
Right.
Because
it's definitely a bit difficult.
It depends on the person.
Right.
So it's just something to sort of try and sort of see what feels comfortable, really.
Okay.
Because you won't be able to have your heel on the ground when it's fully to the floor, but you'll kind of like if you watch my foot on this one here.
Okay.
When it's fully to the floor, I won't have my heel on the ground, but when I start to bring it up, I can kind of anchor my foot.
Okay.
So I can kind of pivot it
and keep control. Okay.
And it's just a bit more steady rather than your foot being kind of
in the air.
Kind of in the air.
Okay.
Particularly, sometimes when you're having nerves and that sort of thing, you can have like shaky leg sort of syndrome, and if your foot's in the air, it'll be much harder to put your heels on the ground.
Okay.
Your foot will be a bit more anchored if your leg is a bit shaky, and things like that. So it can give you more control, but it depends on the person. Because like because what size shoes are you? Because you look quite fairly big.
13.
So it might not be possible. You just have to sort of see though and see what works for you.
So I think stopping about there is where I have just a bit more forward. Yeah, there, and then the clutch is almost there.
It's almost there. We'll see. We'll give it a go there and see kind of what works best. Because I have had people with very small feet, like size 4 or 5, like ladies, and then they kind of actually get the heel on the ground. So having to then actually do it in the air, which is a bit trickier to control it. But if your heel can't literally touch the ground, then it's not going to work that bit.
Okay.
In terms of the gas and brake, hopefully reasonably self-explanatory what they do, like kind of go and stop.
Yeah.
You said you did a little bit of research on the clutch, like you said you watched some videos and that.
Yeah.
Tell me what you know about the clutch. What's kind of your understanding of what it does or what it's for?
It's very basic of what I understand. I know when you push it fully down, there's like 2 discs that connect to each other. When you press the clutch down, it will separate the discs.
Good.
And then when you bring them together, eventually halfway up the clutch you'll find the biting point.
Yeah, roughly halfway. It depends on the car and where it is, but roughly about halfway.
And then you want to ease on that bit, let the discs kind of find each other, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's a bit like this, because that's some good understanding there though. So you've essentially got 2 metal plates, one connected to the wheels, one to the engine. This represents the clutch pedal, this represents the accelerator, the gas, because they're kind of connected. When you press the clutch down, like you correctly said, it separates that connection.
Okay.
That allows you to do things like select your gears when you've broken that connection.
Okay.
Actually, for realism, I'll press this thing to start the engine, and you'll see because the clutch is down, the engine may be spinning, but it won't make the wheels turn yet.
Okay.
And then because the clutch is down, you can select your gears. And to move off, for example, from the side of the road, like you were sort of explaining it, you would do what's called setting the gas, just pressing the gas a little bit, just gentle gas. You can typically hear a sort of lively hum, they say, but it won't make the wheels move yet because it's not connected.
Right.
And this is what sometimes you get the boy racers doing at the traffic lights, where they have their clutch down and rev the engine, but not going anywhere. And they're not going anywhere because their clutch is down.
Okay.
They're just burning their fuel, basically.
Right.
And then you've got that gas on, and as you bring the clutch up, like you said, they start to get closer and closer until, like you said, you correctly said, the biting point.
Okay.
And I think you did. You say as well, when you get to that biting point, you kind of want to let them sync up almost.
Yeah.
That's the really key thing to avoid. If I said to you stalling, do you know what I mean by stalling?
I know the car kind of like jumps forward and then stops completely.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like the engine dying and that sort of thing. So that's the key to reduce stalling. Basically, when you get to that bite, hold the clutch steady to let those 2 plates sync up, because the wheels one will be going at a very slow speed, the engine will be going at a faster speed, so they need to kind of sync up.
Yeah. Okay.
And once you've moved forwards a bit, so let's say you've got to, can you see the drain in the road there?
Yeah.
Maybe when you got that far, like a couple of car lengths, that drain, then you could start to release the clutch to the top.
Okay.
But if you released it fully before you reach that drain, that would tend to then more likely either be a stall or maybe like a kangaroo. you might have heard that when some people, this is just the power going off. It will turn the battery off to save the battery in the moment.
Okay.
But you might have had a kangaroo when sometimes if you go the clutch up too soon, the car will sort of jump and kind of a bit like a kangaroo they call it. So, any questions on that? Just very briefly about the clutch.
No, I'm pretty. I'm quite confident on this. Yeah, understanding that.
Hi guys, I thought I'd just show you this book to add to your collection. The New Driver's Handbook. It's a 3-in-1 book, and it's got some pretty good reviews from a driving examiner and a driving instructor. It has over 800 practice theory test questions, common driving test faults, driving test general tips, and advice on dealing with nerves on the big day. Finally, it has tips for after you've passed your test, including vehicle maintenance and driving abroad. You can find a link to this book in the description below. Now, back to the video. Next thing we'll do is let's get you have a go at moving through the gears, just show you about the gears. Now whenever moving the gears, like that's good, it's a good mindset to having using the clutch.
Okay.
So if you can press that clutch fully down for me and keep it down, and if you have your hands on a gear stick just here, so what we're going to do, we're going to have a go going through some gears. So if your hands on the gear stick for me,
yeah.
So if you have your hands just in there, so if you push the gear stick towards me and up, that'll be into gear 1.
Yeah.
If you now just very gently pull the gear stick down, can you feel there's like a spring?
Yeah.
So there's a spring that will take it back into the middle.
Okay.
Which will be below gear 3 but above gear 4. It will be take you back into there. So if you're in first, you went down and there's a spring that takes it in there.
Okay.
The reason I mention that, if you go clutched fully down for me again, and we're going to go back into gear 1, so that's pushing it towards me and up. The reason I mention that, if you want to go gear 2, it's really important you push the gear stick towards me before you go down. Okay. Otherwise, the spring could take hold, and then you end up in gear 4.
Okay.
So, do you want to have a go at doing that? If your hand just push it towards me, cool. And that'll basically guarantee you get that gear as long as you've pushed it to the left, towards me, and then down.
Okay.
And for example, if you wanted to go to gear 3, just go up very gently and let it spring in the middle and then go up. So there's no need to push it to the right.
Okay. Because
the spring will do that for you. If you try to push it to the right, you would end up
gear 5.
in gear 5.
Okay.
So, but just that spring's quite a important thing to know about that. So then it helps you sort of know which gear you're in to do the gear correctly. And then if you now just go down on the gear stick, just gently into the middle, that's it. And have you sort of seen when people check it's in what's called neutral, what they do? Yeah, that's
left
it, sort of
right.
wiggle it left to right.
Yep.
Some people get a bit OCD with it and check it about 10 times.
Right.
If you sort of, I don't think anyone does that. I know I do it a little bit, just they sort of do it about 10 times before they to make sure.
Right.
So that's a bit about the kind of the gear movements. What we're going to also do, because the power's turned off, can you just press this button for me to turn on the electrics? Would you know how to do a left indicator?
Yeah, that would be this one.
Good, that's it, cool. And then if you just press that again, it's good. And then would you be able to do a right indicator now to do that? That's good, cool. And then turn that back off. Cool. The next we're going to do is get you to basically just have a go at doing the handbrake to make sure that makes sense.
Right.
Now, because we're going to be playing around with the handbrake, well, what's the reason the handbrake's on at the moment? What do you think?
Because we're parked up and it's locking the back wheels at the moment.
Oh, you even know that. So
yes.
it actually locks the back wheels, yeah. Which is when you can don't do handbrake turns. When you can, that's how you do handbrake turns, because it only locks the back wheels and the front wheels keep turning. But yeah, we'll do handbrake turns on the second lesson.
Okay, sweet.
So because we're going to be basically taking that thing off that's holding the car still, which one of those pedals do you think we're going to need to be pressing in the moment?
Definitely the brake.
Yeah, cool. And like I found out a moment ago, the brakes aren't actually working at the moment because the engine's off.
Right.
So it's really important before we sort of play around this, we turn the engine off so the brakes work fully. But before we turn the engine on, shall we pop on our belts? Cool, that's good as well. Yeah, nice that. Getting rid of any sort of twists and that sort of thing.
Okay.
It's a good idea, like the way you were doing that. Cool. So to turn the engine on in this car, and like with a lot of modern cars, you need to press that clutch pedal fully down and keep it down. And this one's not essential, but I just want to show you how this brake thing works. Like if you put your foot on the brake as well, where it feels quite stiff.
Yeah.
And what you should do for me is basically just do this before you turn the engine on. Just check with the handbrake, just give it a bit of a tug like that.
Yeah.
To make sure it doesn't go up anymore, but don't like overdo it and like trying to yank it off. And with the gear stick, checking it's in neutral. So basically when you start the engine up, there's no chance the car's going to jolt forwards anywhere.
Okay.
So do you want to do that? Give the handbrake a bit of a tug. That's it. And then gears a bit of a wiggle. So they sometimes say giving it a tug and a wiggle.
Okay.
And if you now start up, press the button to start up the engine, because with the clutches down, the engine will start this time. And see how the brake feels when you do that.
Oh, it goes completely loose.
Yeah. So that's because now the hydraulics on the hydraulic fluid in the brakes is now working, and the brake pedal works properly now.
Okay.
So that's what I thought you don't have to press the brake when you start the engine. I thought I'd just do that just so you could see the difference, how it feels different.
Yeah, completely. Right.
And because it's in neutral, you can come off the clutch and it'll be fine, the car won't move anywhere. So that's kind of why we did the checking the handbrake in neutral we start up, so there's no chance the car's going to suddenly try and move unexpectedly.
Okay.
So if you now apply the foot brake fully, and keep it applied, because now we're going to have a go of this handbrake. So do you want to have a go? See if you can take the handbrake off. You might have seen how people do it before. Do you know how they do it? Yep.
Just like that.
That's it, cool. And then how would they reapply the handbrake? How would you do that? Have you seen them do that? Yeah, cool. And then to give it a final little tug, just to make sure it's definitely on, but like I say, without kind of overdoing it. And when doing a final tug, doing it without the button, the reason being, so your foot brake's on, isn't it? Cool.
Yeah.
The reason being, let's say if I put the handbrake to there, that's not on fully, and the way you can tell, without of course like getting out of the car and waiting for it to roll into something, the way you can tell is without pushing the button, just feel it, and if it does that, that means it wasn't on properly the first place. It was only like on 50%, for example.
Right, okay.
But if it's on properly, and that had one more click quite easily, that's okay now. If I forced it, it would go up more.
Okay.
But without forcing it, that's
where it wants to be.
That's fine now. Like if you try, if I put it like there, so that's not on properly, that would roll on a hill, that would like that.
Okay.
Have a go at just pulling the handbrake without the button for a moment, just see how you can feel the difference. But don't force it, because that's possibly slightly, you might find now that would be slightly hard to take off. Have a go at taking it off, and you might find it slightly hard to take off because you pulled it up a tiny bit too high, a little bit too forceful with it.
Okay.
Yeah, that feels okay there.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically you shouldn't be able to easily get more clicks on it, which is what it's doing there.
Okay.
Any questions on that at the moment?
At the moment, no. I'm fairly happy with what's been said.
Cool.
It's just, is there any scenario where you'd leave the handbrake at, say 50%?
Not that I can think of.
No.
Not what I can think of. It's basically kind of, if you'd either want it on fully or off fully.
Okay.
I can't think of a scenario you want it on 50%, to be honest.
Okay.
But maybe there is one, but I can't think of one. So, and because the handbrake's now on, you can then come off the foot brake and it'll be fine, the car won't move anywhere.
Okay, yeah.
So, that's basically just about the controls in the car. Any questions about that at the moment? Or
None at the moment, no.
Cool.